Bonjour, bonjour. It is Sunday, and I am here live in Paris. And I am going to share with you today some of the hidden treasures of Paris that are in plain sight. And a lot of them are right here around my favorite place, the Louvre. We did a podcast on the La Vie Creative, Paris History Avec Hemingway. Last week's episode that we did was part one of the hidden treasures, and it's on the right bank. And a lot of these are going to be the ones I share with you today. So it's fun to do it in a little visual way so you can see. And some of these are going to be in tomorrow's episode. That's October 9th, 2023. And so if you listen to this, you could check these out. But I am starting here, and we are at the very, very end of the Louvre. And so this is the end of the Denon wing. And this part right here is the Pavillon de Flore. And the Pavillon de Flore was originally actually part of the Tuileries. And so if you've watched some of these before or have listened to my podcast, then you will have heard me talk about the Pavillon de Flore quite a few times. That is the Pavillon Marsan. And this is where it originally was the Palais des Tuileries. So it was built right here. It was built by Catherine de Medici in the 16th century. And it was done by Philippe Delamore. And he built this, and she wanted to have something after her husband died. Henry II was killed. She didn't want to be at the Hotel de la Tournon, which was over where Place des Vosges is now. So she wanted her own palace built. So this is what she built. This, over time, it also is where Napoleon lived. This is where he stayed, and in his bedroom, he had a very famous painting, Mona Lisa, in there with him. Napoleon III was here when Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette were taken from Versailles. They were put here at the Tuileries, and at first it was just a country club atmosphere where they could do whatever they want. And then once she tried to escape, that's when they put them on lockdown. But behind me here is the Pavillon de Flore. And so it is this gorgeous pavilion. So when they say that nothing remains of the Tuileries that was destroyed on May 25th, 1871 in the Commune in what was known as the Bloody Week, it's not really true, because these are actually part of the Tuileries. They just now are absorbed into the Louvre. And this whole part here behind us, which is the Grand Gallery. Grand Gallery reached all the way down to here, and it was created specifically to link up the Tuileries to the Louvre. And you can see it's an 80-degree day in Paris. It is just about perfect for October. But what's really fun about this one is that this was built, and then it was taken apart, because after in the original one from the Tuileries, it wasn't in the best shape. And so Napoleon III decided to take it all apart in 1861, and they rebuilt in 1864, sadly for it just to be almost burnt 7 years later. But this is where, during the Revolution, and when Louis XVI, Marie Antoinette were held, this is where Princess Lamabelle, who was a friend of hers, and also Madame Elisabeth, who was the sister of Louis XVI, they lived here in this part. The very other side, the Pavillon Marsan, is where the governess that took care of the royal children lived. But now this is not part of the Louvre. We can't come this far down when we come in here. We could only go just past kind of where that clock tower is in the corner, and over that first entrance, which is the Pavillon, the Porte de Lyon. And that's about as far as we could go. And then the rest of this is underneath here. You have the École du Louvre, but you also have the National Restoration Department. So, and they take care of actually pieces, sometimes from all around the world, because they have some of the best people that restore art in the world here. But around here, if you go in, this is one little thing that you know that the Louvre is my very favorite place, but I also really love the Orsay. And when I'm in the Orsay, not only can I go up to this window up here that you can kind of see through the sun, and I could look back and see the Louvre, but there's some pieces of the Louvre inside there. Because when they redid this one under Napoleon III, Carpeaux was the sculptor that redid the very top of these buildings with the goddess Flore. And you can see those sketches, you can see the temporary pieces that he designed. You can see them in the Orsay. And here, we can see them. You can see them way up high. It's probably not the best angle to see them at, but they're up here. But the sketches are just right across the street. There's also other pieces in the Orsay of the different other sculptures that are up on top of the building. And we're just going to walk down on this side because there's another little hidden thing I love to point out and see. All of the, see these guys are around the city a lot, protecting everything. Since the terrorist attacks of 2015, they are everywhere, keeping an eye on things. If something was going to happen, it would probably happen around a tourist location. But they've added those kicky little berets to their ensemble these days. Look at how lovely of an evening it is, early evening here. We actually, the leaves haven't really, some of them are starting to turn, but not a lot yet. And it's first week of October already. So if you're trying to watch this on the live version, we had so many problems. The signal kept cutting out that we're doing it this way. So thank you for watching, coming back to watch it. So here, this is the Porte de Lyon. This is sometimes an entrance you could use to the Louvre, but it is not one I would rely on. I would not come here in the morning and line up and hope to get in, because a lot of times it is not open. But here you have, because it is the Porte de Lyon, you have these two wonderful lions here. And these were done by Paris, who was one of the best animal sculptors there was. He was his little hanging around with his cohort Delacroix, where they would go to the Jardin des Plantes and watch and study animals and sketch them. And he first made one of these in 1836. He made the one here on the right, not this one, but he made the one in 1836 for Louis Philippe. And then when they did this building, they decided that they wanted those on here, so they needed a copy. So in 1867, they took this one and made an exact copy. And if you look on here, his name, Paris' name, is actually backwards, because it's just a mirrored copy version of it. But I love walking down to this entrance. It always has the most beautiful light in the afternoon. If it's time for the sunset, you kind of see all of the beautiful gold light coming back. You cannot use this door as an exit, though. I wish you could, because the Denon wing is the busier wing that you come to, and I would love it if you could come sneak out this side, but they don't let you. Right now there's only one exit, and it's down through under the pyramid into the inverted pyramid into the shopping mall. So hopefully they fix that, so my secret exit is open again, but we shall see. So this whole part here, this was all done by Henry IV, and he did this entire part between 1595 and 1602. And then when Napoleon III came along, he wanted to make it so that the cars could come through, because this was just one long building, went all the way to the ground. And Napoleon III decided he wanted to make it so they could have a pass through, but he also wanted this to be one of the grand access. So there is the famous grand access in Paris. This starts at the Bernini sculpture of Louis XIV, which I'll show you. It goes all the way outside the city to La Défense. But Napoleon III wanted another one, and he wanted it to go from the Opera all the way to the Boulevard Saint-Germain. So it would have gone over here, over the Pont de Carousel. But there's buildings over there, so that didn't really work out. But they had to take this part. So they actually took this part of the building apart and redid it, lifted it up, and this is what we have today. So I'll go across so you can see it before we'll come back. And this is such a beautiful bridge. It's about an hour away from sunset, I think. Maybe I can even go in the middle of the street. So if you look over here at this side, you can see this whole part. So this was all done by Napoleon III. zoom out a little for you. So they lifted it up and then they put kind of the top part back together. And so the up there in the middle where the bronze, it's a genie of the arts, and he is up there, and he was supposed to originally be a Napoleon III on a horse, and they decided by the time it was finished they decided not to do that. So you have the genie of the arts on his horse, and then above that you have Juno and Jupiter, because you see the eagle up there. And then down below here we have two statues. The one on the left is of war and the one on the right is of peace. And this is pretty cool. So these are, when you look at, if you are in the Grand Gallery, when I take people in there and show them, you don't see any of these windows. So the only windows, you do see the one here with the flags and the other one with the flags, but you don't see any of the other windows because they've covered them all up because they just needed more wall space. And so you do see them all on the outside. And sometimes, if we did a live a few weeks ago where you could kind of peek into the windows and see where they keep a ladder and store some other things. But the Grand Gallery stretches all the way across here, and the Grand Gallery is of course filled with Italian masters, and a majority of those all had once belonged to the king. So mostly Francois Premier, and then Louis XIV were the two guys that were collecting everything. And then also, since we're actually against the sun, if you look way up here, kind of on this little balcony, you can see some golden ends. And if you would notice, those ends are actually backwards. And those were added for Napoleon III, but they actually never noticed them because they were actually really dark. And nobody really noticed that they were backwards until many years later they decided to gild them. And when they gilded them, they said, oh, wait a second, these are backwards. And they don't know why. Historians and Louvre historians have no idea why. They don't know if it was somebody that was anti-Bonaparte and just didn't like him and just decided, haha, we'll show him, or what the problem was, but they are. And I love that little secret. But another one that I really love that nobody ever notices, and there's one on both sides of the street, and then there's two on each side. But here, you would never really notice it because it's in the ground in the same exact stone. But see the N for Napoleon, meaning Napoleon III. And then we go across the street over here, and you have another initial. Here's the war, and here's peace. She's got, as you can see, she has the olive branch. Sometimes they close these down so you can't actually get through. You can't drive through, you can walk through, but they have been closing them at times to cars. Isn't the light today? It's just so beautiful. And it's going to be like this for days in Paris. So I have a few lucky friends and clients that are here right now on one of this, just like the day can't get any better. It's kind of crisp and fall and cool in the morning, and then at night or during the day it gets sunny. But see, on this side you see an H, as I am in my long dress. So there's an H here, and that's for Henry IV, because Henry IV, this side of the building is still the original Henry IV, and the side on the other side, on our left, was Napoleon III. So not only did some of them mark the sides of the building with initials of what they did and where they were, they also marked the ground, just in this spot here, just the N's and H. But I love those. There used to be another little secret on the facade over there, and it was one of the sculptors, marked into the wall a sundial. But when they just did this renovation on the whole Galerie Bordelot, that's what that was originally called, the Bordelot, it's gone. They erased it. It's not there anymore, sadly. So we're going to head in back here through the Cour Napoleon. And in the Cour Napoleon, there's a couple fun little things to show you, including, I mentioned the Bernini statue, because I mentioned the grand access, and that's where it starts. And so you have a statue over here in front, and it's not really centered to the pyramids. So that's kind of your little hint that something is off here, because usually everything is very symmetrical and perfectly placed in Paris. That is the essence of French design. If you look at French gardens, everything's planned out and laid out. And then you look at English gardens and it's like they just threw the seeds out and come what may. It's a little more planned out than that, but it's a good difference of what these are. And so you have this Bernini. So this was done by Bernini, who was Italian. And Louis XIV invited Bernini to Paris to design the colonnade of the back of the Louvre. And he did that, and there's plans, and I've seen the plans of what they would have looked like, but none of that happened. He decided not to do it, and Louis XIV also left, which we'll tell you about when we get back there. But when he was here, he did this statue of Louis XIV, and when he did the statue and presented to Louis in 1684, Louis hated it. So here he is up here, and I'll kind of show you the front of it. And so it looks like he's dancing on some flames, and he absolutely hated it, and he told them to actually stick it in the very back of the garden. And here you have it up here. But then in 1687, Francois Girardon was asked to redo it, and when he changed it so he looked more like a Roman general, victorious general there. But it's right here in the middle, and if you stand right behind it, and it's a little difficult now because the Arc de Triomphe is under restoration, so you cannot see. But if you could, and I bring you into the Louvre, I show you the little part upstairs where you could see it. He basically, if you got on this horse and rode through, you'd go on a straight line all the way out to La Défense, and there's all the monuments line up one after another on the way. It is a lovely, busy day. Oh, it looks like they actually let people out through the pyramid here at the end of the day. I wish they would do that during the day. But now I'm going to show you one of my other favorite little finds here in the city that I've been obsessed with for about a decade. Basically since the first time I saw Da Vinci Code. And then I had to find out what these things were. And so if you are in Paris and you keep your eyes to the ground, which usually you should always be looking up and on buildings, but just kind of keep your head on a swivel and look up, down, look all the way around. If you look down on the ground, you will find some brass markers. And these brass markers go from north to south through Paris. They were added in 1994, and they were in homage to Francois Arago, and he was the scientist that plotted out the meridian. And the meridian went through, he extended it all the way down into Spain. And so they decided in 1994, the Association Arago, to actually mark those and put them throughout the city. And so you could actually follow them if you want. You could go online, and they actually have like the actual coordinates that you could find online. And one of them is right here, right where somebody is sitting. Right there. But we'll go this way. So if you just kind of remember, keep north to south, kind of stay on that line, you should be able to find the other one. But what my favorite thing about it is they are inside the Louvre. So they're inside the Louvre. You've got, here's another one. And if you go inside the Louvre, basically straight line from where we are, you will find them You will find 3 in the Denon wing, and then you will find 4 in the Richelieu. And those are there. Right now, the ones in the Denon, only 1 is visible, and it's basically straight through that door. And that is, over here is where the staircase is that goes from my beautiful Wing Victory. And then down, you come around down here, come down the staircase to go to Venus de Milo. If you look down here, there's one on the stairs, just on the little landing. I'll show the other one. It's, of course, right where somebody's standing. So, but you could come and find them, and you could come through the city. Some of them have been taken. People have stolen them, taken them out, which is kind of sad. But if you find the ones in the Louvre, those are even extra special. Oh, here's another one. There you go. But they're brass, and so they say Arago, which is his name. And if you keep following him, on the outside of the Pavillon Richelieu, straight across there, there is a special one. It's high up. It's about a little over waist height, and it's a special one because it was added for 2000, and there's supposed to be one on the other side of the Louvre too, but it is missing, sadly. People can't have nice things. Oh, and then another fun little thing is Napoleon III did more for the way Paris looks today than any other ruler we know. He did more. He doubled the size of the Louvre. Next month, I'll do something special because it is the 30th anniversary of this entire wing being part of the Louvre. Can you believe that? Only 30 years. So this whole entire side here, the Pavillon Colbert is there, the one, the smaller one on the right, and then the Pavillon Richelieu. And this whole section here didn't even exist until 1863. When Mr. Napoleon III added all of it. So when he added on to the Louvre, he also added this whole entire side. So when we were just out there on the back side where you saw the Grand Gallery, that's all this was. It came out to here. So this was that little kind of bay window-ish area. That was the original entrance. And then he added all of this onto here. All the way down to here. And so he doubled the size of the Louvre. And so when he did that, he also added himself to the top of the Pavillon Denon. And after everything that he did, this is the only monument or statue we have dedicated to him. And you can see it way up here at the very top. If you can kind of see that, you can see him right here. And where he is looking is he's looking over here, because over there at the Pavillon Colbert is at the very top, just right there above the window. You see a little baby, and that is Prince Louis Napoleon, and that was his son. So he is there, and he's looking over at him. And then on this one, we have Napoleon Bonaparte. The first one below him is an eagle that he always had, and you can see the ends on there. And while this whole side back here is the older part of what we see of the Louvre, 16th century, and this inside courtyard, this side of the back of the Sully wing, that was actually, this was the service entrance, because when I show you where we're gonna go, that was the main entrance. So this was the back entrance, and there was actually still houses out in here. There was all sorts of stuff in here. And when they finished this and added the Richelieu wing, they basically purchased all the property or kicked the people out. And so Napoleon III completely redid this. The original one had windows on there, but they were fake windows, so they just looked like windows, but they actually did not look out here because they didn't need to, because there was nothing great on this side. And so Napoleon III had all that added. So that's why there's N's on here, where technically should be a F for Francois or an H for Henri II, who did all of this work here. But Napoleon said, well, guess what? I just redid it all. So I'm putting my initial on it. So you could almost tell the whole story of who did what on which part of the Louvre because of initials, except for a few places where maybe a ruler said, yep, I just redid it. So guess what? I'm going to keep this one here instead. So we're going to go out back here to the very back side, and I will show you another one of my favorite secrets hidden here in Paris. Out here in the middle, this is the Cour Carrée. The Cour Carrée. This is essentially back here, right where I'm standing, is where the original medieval Louvre was. And it didn't exactly, a lot of people think it fit kind of in this exact little quadrant, but it wasn't. It actually stretched out over to just the other side of here, just past into that cobblestones. But 1977, they were doing some work, and they ended up finding basically these chutes, and they put on top of it, they put these grates on top, and that rectangular one is kind of where the dungeon tower would have been. And then in the 1980s, in 1984, they were digging around because they were doing the pyramid project, and that's when they found the entire base of the medieval Louvre, the former moat, and you can still go in there today. And I love to take people down there and show them. It's really fascinating to see it. But they didn't even know it was there till 1984. Can you believe it? And it goes back to the 12th century, to 1190. But I walked through here Saturday night, about 10:30 last night, walking home. Beautiful, beautiful fall night. It was warm, and there was music in every one of these, under every one of the pavilions. It was quite lovely. So you have the Pavillon des Arts there, and that has its name because it links up to the Pont des Arts, and the Pont des Arts has its name because it straddles in between the left bank to the right bank into where the Institut de France is, which is where the academies are, and then here to the Louvre, the Palace of Arts, which used to be at one point where all of the academies were, until Napoleon kicked them out 1805, and they moved over to the Institut de France, which is where they are today. And here, this used to be an entrance to the Louvre, and it will become an entrance again, not sure when, hopefully maybe by next summer. They have a lot of work to do that, because this technically goes right into the Egyptian department. These two doors on either side of us go into the Egyptian department. But when Louis XIV left and went to Versailles, he gave this to the artists, and so the academies were already here. The Royal Academy was here, and the academies of science and letters and everybody were here. And then he told the artists they could live here. So Jacques-Louis David and just tons, Giordot, a bunch of artists moved in here. And when they moved in here, they were here. There was artists living here for over 200 years. And in that little pavilion we just walked under, that is where they had, you would have a smart little businessman selling canvases and paint and everything. But if you look all the way up here to the top, so this is the Colonnade Perrault, and this was originally done. So Louis XIV asked Bernini to design a new side to this and a new entrance, and none of those happened. And then Claude Perrault was the one who, with Louis Laveau and Charles Lebrun, decided to design this. And so it's a grand colonnade. It is the best and probably the perfect example of the French classicism, here, that's here in the city. And when he decided, he says, forget this, I'm going to Versailles, I don't want to be in Paris anymore, they just stopped. So this side of the building did not have a roof on it for almost 200 years until a man named Napoleon finished it up, put a roof on it. And when he decided to do that, he decided to also add his face onto the building. So he asked Francois Frederic Lemont to add his face up there to the top of it. And then in 1815, the year after he was ousted, Louis Philippe was now the king of the French, and he decided that he wanted to erase Napoleon. And so they went up there and he went in there and he covered up his head by putting a wig on it, thinking that maybe nobody would really figure it out, and all of a sudden everybody would be, it's like, oh, that must be Louis XIV. But what they weren't very smart about is, you see just on the right side, you see the woman on the right, she next to her has a shield, and on that shield is actually the bees of Napoleon. So they weren't very smart. They kind of forgot a few things. So it's still Bonaparte-ish. But that is Napoleon up there, not Louis XIV. And I don't think Louis XIV should be able to get that honor anyway, because he just said, forget you guys, I'm out of here, I'm going to Versailles. And they didn't have the roof. There was no roof for almost 200 years. I still can't get over that. But now there is, and it's all done. Claude Perrault, his brother, Charles Perrault, you may know him from such things as Cinderella, Little Red Riding Hood. We wrote a few popular stories. Later, he tried to say, oh, it was actually me. I'm the one that helped design it, not my brother. So you cannot go out there. You cannot walk out there, but you can go into either side of the pavilions at the very end, and you can look all the way down here, and it's really beautiful. And you have this amazing view behind us of Saint-Germain-l'Auxerrois, the church. To the left of that is the mayor's office of the first, and when they designed it, they designed that building so it matches, fits right in with Saint-Germain-l'Auxerrois. And then right behind that, where you have that giant crane, is the Cheval Blanc Hotel and the Samaritain department store. So it's really beautiful. So this was a church that the royalty would use. And when Gabrielle d'Estrées, who was the love of the life of Henry IV, when she died right before they were supposed to get married, he had her funeral there, and it was a funeral fit for a queen, because she would have been his wife and the true love. Probably one of the few times a king was actually going to maybe actually get to marry somebody that he loved. But that's where it was. And also, you might know from more frequent times, Eva Longoria, when she married Tony Parker. That's where they got married. Maybe it's not a very good place to get married. But that is a few little hidden things. So definitely listen to the podcast. The first episode was this past week, which I think is October 2nd, I think it was, on Monday. And the next episode, part 2, comes out tomorrow on October 9th. And you can find that. I'll put a link down below at anywhere you get your podcast at La Vie Creative. And every Monday is Paris History Avec Hemingway, which is me sharing all sorts of fun Paris history. And the week after that, sneak peek, is going to be more hidden secrets of the left bank. So we'll do that. And so next week, and make sure you join me Sundays for a live video from Paris. And hopefully the technology gods are in our favor tomorrow, next week. And I'll see you then.